Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Meet you. Whoops. Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
I just lost up my view. Okay, there we go.
Are you a morning person or afternoon person?
I'm an afternoon person.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely an afternoon person, not a morning person.
Well, because when I ring my father, he gets a bit cranky when I ring him in the afternoon. So I always ring him in the morning. So I never ring him in the afternoon because I know he's not.
No, afternoon is a lot better for me.
Okay, oh good. So how have you been?
I've been just great. Nice to meet you, and as close to in person as we're going to get.
Yeah, I was a bit nervous, like, oh, I don't know what to expect or anything.
Well, that's the best part about a conversation. You never know where it might lead.
Yeah. Well, you know how I sent that text, and I wasn't sure. I thought I'll just send something to think about, because I don't like to plan anything. Just go with the flow.
Great with me. I know that when I'm doing presentations, the Q&A portion is always my favorite because we can just flow with whatever people come up with.
Yeah. So I had a look at your website. I think it's
accessyourpotential.net.
Is that your main one?
Yes, that's my only one.
Oh, your only one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your work. Is it okay if I put it on screen, or?
That would be great. And actually what I'm going to do too, I've just got a notification from someone I haven't heard from in years. So let's turn notifications off so we're not getting constant ding.
They call at the right time. So
it's really funny how that can happen.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this is your YouTube. I sort of Googled your name, and you got 10,000 views on your talk. But just going to your website. Yeah, it's quite a good website.
Thank you. I'm very pleased with it. Put a lot of time and work into it, and it's nice to have a website that kind of reflects the scope of the things that I'm involved in.
Yeah, because you know, you're way ahead of what I would have loved to, you know, where to be in the future. So you're doing what I'm sort of dreaming about, but you're actually doing it. So I'm way behind.
Well, you've got time.
Sorry?
I said you have time.
Oh, yeah. Mom, I don't know. I might go in a different direction. Who knows?
Well, life has a way of throwing us curves like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, so because you know, I noticed one thing: the hypnosis and NLP. I did have a look into NLP for a while. I spent a couple of years just reading books and stuff about NLP. It's quite good.
It is, and I think especially if you apply it with a broader viewpoint that takes the whole person. In its basic form, it can be a bit manipulative, but if applied with the right intentions, it can be amazingly effective.
Yeah, because there is, you can misuse. It's like everything else. If you misuse it for selfish purposes, then it's not going to work out good in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a good way of So if I recommend somebody where to start, I would start with NLP, and that'll probably lead to hypnosis, and that'll probably lead that person to Edgar Cayce because so sort of like a path.
If they start on the home page, what you will have noticed is that there is a sliding menu that covers the aspects of what I do in my work. So the homepage is a good place for somebody to start for a general interest.
Okay. And then
that .net, that not a .com, accessyourpotential.net.
Oh yeah, that's the one I got now.
Yep.
So because you've been doing it for you're more than 40 years or for a long time, eh?
I have been seeing clients one-on-one since 1993 and doing hypnosis related work in conference workshop settings since the early 80s, actually.
Okay. Yeah, because I was lying in bed sometimes. I think about stuff, and I was thinking, you know, how like when you're conscious or physical conscious is more, you're alert, alive, and then when you go into hypnosis or sleep-like state, sort of everything shuts down, and you're sort of in a different, a lower vibration or something. So it's like a different level.
Well, that state between waking and sleep has a name. It's called the hypnagogic state.
Yeah.
And it is a state where the subconscious is beginning to kind of take over. And that's why there will be spontaneous images for some people, faces can appear, thoughts can come up, ideas. And then on the other end, as we're waking up in the morning, that same in-between state occurs, and that's called the hypnopomic state.
Okay. Yeah, because so Edgar Cayce is amazing how he could put himself into that sleep-like state and then access, you know.
It was amazing. And I think that by kind of modern analysis, we could speculate that Edgar Cayce was probably in a state of self-hypnosis. Yeah. That is, he did have a conductor, as you well know, who would kind of guide the process, but the actual going into that deeper state was something that he was able to do within himself, as opposed to relying on, well, of course, the early experiments when he was a young man and had lost his voice were classic hypnotic induction with a hypnotist. And that was really how he stumbled upon his ability. Through early experiments with hypnosis. And it was only afterward that he realized that he was the one putting himself into the state, and he was able to kind of take that and go with it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because like I'm a bit envious of you because you're in Virginia Beach and everybody, you know, wants to be close to the ARE, and you're like, you've been there a long time, so.
I have, but you know, the good thing is in this day and age, virtually everything is available digitally, online, virtually. And so when I first became involved with ARE, if you wanted to borrow a book from the library, they mailed it to you in a pouch. You read it and you mailed it back, and they did the same with audio tapes and so on. And never could have dreamed of a day where if I have a question about something in a Cayce reading, I go to the website, I put in my keywords that I think will take me to the reading I'm looking for, and boom, there it is on my screen. It's just the card catalog file in the library at ARE was huge. I mean, it's still there, but I mean, it was the only way you could research the readings. You would pull out the drawer and it was indexed, and you would go through the card files, and then you'd go to the shelf and you'd take a big spiral bound notebook off the shelf and lay it on a table. And it had a certain charm that an internet search doesn't necessarily have, but for convenience and accessibility to virtually anyone, you can't beat what we have available today.
Oh yeah, I know. That's amazing now. Like what you can do.
It is.
Do you still have your cassette tapes of meditation made easy?
I do. I have a complete set in the binder. I think I may have the masters somewhere for that, or maybe it's for, we also did a tape course for remembering past lives. And I do have a big drawer in one of my upstairs bedrooms that is nothing but cassette tapes from my other life. And I always thought someday I would do something with them, but probably my poor son will be left with this mountain of tapes wondering what the heck to do with them when I'm no longer here.
Yes, because I contacted, there's another Lynn, I think Lynn Rogers, her name. She sent some tapes over from America to Australia. It cost me about $60 to send.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's by Helen Schroeder, I think her name is.
Helen Ruth Schroeder.
Yes.
She was a powerhouse in the Search for God experience. She was very active out in Southern California, and she was one of the regional coordinators when they first began having regional coordinators. Helen Ruth was a lovely, lovely woman.
Yeah, so I've got that cassette tape. Now I have to sort of convert it into MP3, and so I need to go look for a tape player, cassette player. So I have to go maybe look for it in a secondhand shop somewhere.
Right.
Or brand.
Or eBay.
It's going to be a bit of a mission. She also sent a video cassette. I think it's Harmon Bro had a talk. I forgot the title of it, but so I have to convert that into a digital form. So that's going to be a bit of a mission as well. It's going to cost a lot of money. So she did send it as just a trial, and I don't think I'm keen to have another one sent again. It's just too expensive.
I think if you get the right equipment that you can, when you can turn, let's say a VHS tape, that's what you're talking about with Harmon, a video VHS tape to a video file. It's not that expensive to do it and hard to do it yourself. So you might want to look into that.
Yeah, I'll try and do that. Yeah, I've got a DVD recorder, so if I find a video cassette player, then I'll hook it up to that, and then. So I wonder do you think ARE has a lot of cassettes, or they got rid of it? Because they must have had lots of cassettes.
I am guessing, but I don't know this. There was a time when the archive in the Edgar Cayce Foundation kept one of everything that ARE ever produced. Whether that has remained true, I don't really know, because I'm trying to imagine the size of the storage unit that would be required at this point. So I'm sure it's not, things like that aren't available for regular circulation, but I'd like to think there's an archival copy of most of those things. Yeah,
because they're quite good programs. A lot of cassettes, they're like hidden gems. And
it's true. A lot of the ones you're looking at are probably things I cut my teeth on. I know you asked me in some of the notes you sent me whether I had met or worked with Hugh Lynn and Gladys and Herb Puryear, and the answer is yes to all of those. And I will always be grateful that I came in when those people in particular were still very much a part of the work, because I'll tell you about my first meeting with Hugh Lynn. I had been reading Cayce books. I was just a teenager. I was living outside of New York City. I grew up in New Jersey, and I got word, and I don't remember how, that Hugh Lynn Cayce was giving a talk over in New York at the Spiritualist Society. And I was all of 16 years old, and Hugh Lynn was the equivalent of a superstar to me. I mean, like meeting your favorite musician. And so a group of us went over to the event. And when it was over, I was a very shy kind of kid, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to at least meet the great Hugh Lynn Cayce. And so went up to him afterward, told him how much I had enjoyed his talk. And this was in November, and that becomes relevant because he said, you all should come down for our conference next month. And right, they were having an annual youth conference that took place at that time every year from December.
What year was that? What year was that?
That would have been 1970.
Oh,
this was November of 1970.
Wow.
And they at that time had a youth conference that was put out to be for youth between the ages of 16 and 30. And he said, you all should come down. And there was a woman there who was part of ARE work in New Jersey, who I didn't know. And he pulled her over. He says, Marlene, you can give these girls a ride to Virginia Beach, can't you? And the next thing, we were all in a hug huddle. And I never could have imagined that my first time of going to a formal presentation to meet the famous LYNN Cayce would end in my talking to him, being invited to come to a conference, and on top of that, being in a big hug huddle with him. And as it turned out, the woman he tried to rope in was not going down, and my friend and I took a Trailways bus out of the New York Port Authority building. It went all through the night on what I call our pilgrimage to Mecca. We arrived in Virginia Beach at around dawn, and that conference was there were a couple hundred of us. I was at the very young end of it. Most of them were college students. And among the speakers were Herb Puryear and Harmon Bro.
Oh, amazing.
And of course, LYNN. And that was really just, I began going to that conference every year until I finally moved here. But it was a life-changing experience because I was like a sponge. I couldn't get enough of it. And Walter Pankey, who was an early researcher in spiritual use of psychedelics, was one of the speakers. Some of the people that we heard in those early days were very remarkable.
Probably other teenagers your age would probably go to a rock concert and get but yeah, that was your rock concert.
I was doing that too.
Oh, okay.
I went to see the Doors and the Who performed Tommy, and I had a great love of the whole rock scene as well. But I'll tell you, this was really special. Yeah, that's for your spiritual side. You exactly.
Need a balance. Oh, so that's amazing because that was the early times, and because I went through the journal, and that's some stuff there. It's just amazing. Like
that was a nice publication. They had a lot of good things in it.
But I think it was just in the beginning stage, so they had only a few authors and just a few articles every month or something. So it's sort of like they built from there. That was like the foundation that started the magazine that we have now, and
right.
Yeah. Right. So, and now there's more authors, so it's everything has a foundation. That was good. Like LYNN Cayce started something amazing.
He was a remarkable man, and had great charisma. And when I moved there in early 1976, he was still the executive in charge. Gladys was very much on the scene. She was just a lovely, lovely lady. She had a mind. She didn't forget anything. I mean, if you had any questions, she could remember. And of course, she always spoke very respectfully of Mr. Cayce. And she was a real treasure trove of information. She was a lovely, lovely person. And of course, this was before the building that houses the library and the conference rooms had even been built. There was the building on the hill and the building beside it that had the press in the lower story and one auditorium and a few breakout classrooms on the upper story. And that's where everything took place those early years that I was visiting there.
Yeah, so you can see you're a witness, and you're sort of like the last, one of the last remain that was there.
So, you know what's weird?
Yeah.
When I arrived there, I and my contemporaries were the young people that all the old timers were welcoming in, because Hewlin especially had vision to realize he wanted to bring those college kids in. He knew the future of the organization was in bringing in a new wave. And I was even a little younger. I was still a high school student, but all of these leading lights were there. Yeah. Shirley Winston, who was just another leading light, was working the reception desk in the lobby, and all of these people who are living legends were there. And now, yeah, I am older than those old timers were when I arrived there. And it's just shocking to realize that the group that I kind of came in with, and by group, I mean almost a generational soul group, yeah, the soul group that I came in with are now the old timers.
Yeah, and now you have to pass it on to the next generation.
It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, that's why it's good to talk to you, because at least you could share all this stuff before, I mean, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, who knows? The world is in so much upheaval. You don't know and that's, I think, living with uncertainty is part of the spiritual demand and opportunity of these times we live in, because very little is predictable.
Yeah, so this leading to your book, Beyond Soul Growth. So how long did it take for you to write that book? Was it something that's like accumulation of all your 40 years? And
well, there was a cumulative process. A lot of the time, material first gets developed as talks and articles. So I had done a few talks. I had done a couple of 3- and 4-day retreats on the topic of the book. But for probably a good 10 years prior to the publication of that book, I had been following a consuming interest in what is called evolutionary spirituality. And
would that lady who wrote that Revelation book be part of that as well? Barbara something? Or there was lots of them. Barbara, I think her name is Barbara. I think you mentioned it in the book. She wrote the Revelation, but she sort of modernized.
I'm not quite pinging in on who you might mean.
Oh, that's a problem. But yeah, Barbara something. Yeah, that's my memory. But if I find it, I'll let you know.
Okay. The key is that from the evolutionary approach, and this is really, it sets it somewhat apart from most understanding of so-called New Age spirituality. In New Age spirituality, we're kind of here in the earth, and earth is our classroom, and we're going to learn all our lessons so that we can go back to being one with God. The evolutionary approach says that this something that we call God is up to something in the manifest universe. I'm looking at that absolutely gorgeous picture of, I think it must be the Eye Nebula behind you.
Oh yeah,
and that the universe is alive with creative intention, and we are the universe's apex of consciousness so far. We are the means through which consciousness is coming into the not that everything doesn't have consciousness. As one of my favorite evolutionary thinkers, Ken Wilber, says, the rock and the human are both conscious, have consciousness, but the difference is I'm mangling the quote. The difference is that the human knows it, and there are millions of years of evolution separating them, so to speak. And so there is consciousness in all matter, and you find that idea in the Cayce reading everywhere. Consciousness in every cell of the body, consciousness in every atom of the universe. But in the human being, consciousness is constellated to be an expression of the great I am, that is God. And so evolutionary spirituality suggests we can't put soul evolution in one little box and then put biological evolution in another little box and cosmological evolution in another little box, that it is one single interwoven evolution. So that our biological evolution, the cosmological evolution of the universe we're living in and the solar system our planet is suspended in, and the evolution of our consciousness are all part of a single evolutionary process. They're just different facets. And so that's why one of the questions you had raised was whether we complete our soul growth and then we co-create with God. And from an evolutionary spirituality point of view, the co-creating with God is simultaneous with our own soul growth. We have been co-creating by default at the beginning. And we can't not co-create because it's an inherent part of our nature. So that means on our worst days, we're co-creating in a not so great way. And in our best days, we are co-creating in a way that furthers the advance of the
because if you look in the world now, like there's a lot of bad things happening, and I was going, why are we doing this? And that's a negative way of using co-creating, sort of.
Well, this is true, but the other thing, and this is a tough one, I will be the first to say this is tough for me to accept on an emotional level. But the pattern of evolution is that chaos and destruction is an unavoidable part of evolution. Things have to blow up and die before new things can emerge. And I don't know whether we are I hope we're not. I don't know whether we're on the brink of a great chaotic destruction. Everything in me wants that not to be true. But it's possible that this is the precursor to the next quantum leap in evolution. And it's often not pretty.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's quite big stuff. Like that's that's at another level. You know how, like, we were talking about the Jesus, you were planning to write Apprentice to Jesus, I think is your program. But there was another lady that wrote a book, Sacred Journey, and I had a look at it, M.K. Welsh.
I have not read that. I think that's probably Kathleen Welch, who I do know. And actually, if that's who I'm thinking of, I'm in a small group with her, but I have not read that book.
Sacred Journey, Path to Enlightenment. It's actually all about Jesus Christ. Like can I just share you something?
Sure.
This is your book, but if I go to library and Sacred Journey, I'm not gonna put the whole book, otherwise I might get sued for copyright. But if you look at the content.
Oh, that's neat. No, that looks very interesting.
Yeah, see?
Can you show me the cover?
Oh, the cover, okay.
I'm assuming it It must be. It must be the Kathleen Welsh that I know.
Yeah. You want to see what she looks like?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
That will answer it definitively.
Really,
okay, this is a bit of you.
we really, Cayce's readings really make Jesus part of the human community. We found
Yeah,
out
I think that sounds like her voice.
in the Bible, but he had friends.
Yeah. Yeah, so she wrote that book, this book, and this was in 2015, 2016, first printing.
Mhm.
So that was 3 years after your book. And she's talking about, see, the long road home, evolution of the soul. So it's similar to yours, and there's Adam,
Mm-hmm.
and then enduring soul, and she lists all Jesus past, you know.
Right.
And then the Christ awakening, which is chapter 3, the story of Jesus. Conceiving the Christ, the birth of Jesus, that's chapter 3. Then you go to chapter 4, becoming the master. And then the
Looks
king.
like a very interesting book.
Yes, I sort of had another, because it's been sitting in my library. You know how you have books and just it sits there, and you sort of, okay.
I do indeed.
Yeah. I said, I'll make sure. And then I had another closer look at it, and then they said, oh, this is exactly what you were planning to write as well, or?
I don't know. I would have to see what she says about those things. It may or may not be. I really don't know.
Yeah, so it covers everything: meditation, spirit rising. So there's a lot of things about Jesus Christ's work it's all written there. At the end, it's a mystical Christ,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we're all trying to get to. Yeah, so it'll be an interesting book. Maybe I'm going to have a closer look at this, and
Certainly looks worthwhile.
yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so that was because you kept saying that you were planning to write a book about Jesus Christ. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
And I may still do that.
Yeah.
At the time that I was doing the Beyond Soul Growth, Awakening to the Call of Cosmic Evolution, I had to, there was so much that is the story of the Jesus soul. And now I've lost my,
Oh, you're still on.
okay, I've lost, okay, there we go. That I knew that to keep the book at a readable length, I had to sequester that information, because you can't just make passing reference to it without it being more confusing than helpful. And in my earlier years, to write a book about the universal Christ and the role that the Master Jesus had in bringing that into the earth, I thought was my main purpose.
Okay.
But over the years, every time I would go to write that book, it just wouldn't happen. And
I think you're not the only one. I think,
yeah,
you know, there's a lot of, it's not like you're the only one, okay, having that. I think there's a lot of people, there's something that stops.
exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, at the time that I was doing the book that I did do, it seemed like it would be the natural follow-up to go back, and then I had in my mind to have it be the rest of the evolutionary story, because in truth, the part deliberately not gone into in my book was the idea that there was this one entity who took on the entire pattern of incarnation in order to lift the whole of humanity to the next level of evolution. And in my mind at the time, I had a pretty, and I've got folders and folders of notes. I have e-courses I've done on related topics. And someday I may get that inspiration to say, now is the time. I want to do this book, because I do think I have some perspectives that I have not read anywhere else that I would like to get out there. And it particularly relates to the prior incarnations of Jesus as they relate to the chakras.
Because you know, like the Bible, because Edgar Cayce said the Bible is the story of Jesus Christ, you know, from Adam, and he sort of was going on a journey, and that Bible sort of recorded his journey right up till Jesus Christ in the New Testament. So he was sort of having this journey, and he was there's a lot of us involved as well, that we're sort of part of that journey. And you know, like when he was Joshua, I mean, there was a lot of us involved in that time of his life. So then he became Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, and there's a lot of people involved in that part as well. And you know, right now, 2,000 years later, I don't know what's happening now. So.
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah. So you know, so the Lord's Prayer, because you mentioned it in your book. I mean, that's links to the chakras you're just about talking about.
Right.
So it's all there, like
it's all there. And the thing is to see Jesus in the context of the Eastern guru. I believe he had a level of mastery that exceeded that of any Eastern guru we have seen, but it's in that tradition. A group that I'm in read a wonderful book, probably 10 years ago now, called Christ the Yogi, written by a Hindu scholar. Yeah. And it was just remarkable. He dealt with all of Jesus' I am statements from the Gospel of John and related them to the yogic path. And it was very, very interesting book, and a book that the group I'm in now has been reading for more than a year now, an old standard among many people in the Cayce work, the Aquarian Gospel. He makes quite a thing, as Cayce did, of Jesus' journeys to the East in the so-called lost years when we don't hear much about Jesus, that he studied with Eastern masters. And so in many ways, when you look at the larger story of Jesus, he is not the property of a rather small sect in the Middle East. He really brought together the spiritual traditions, Eastern and Western, of his time, and was the master. I love the way Edgar Cayce called Jesus the master of masters, suggesting that role where, yes, he was a spiritual master the same way that, let's say, a Yogananda or Ramana, you know who I mean, would be a spiritual master, but he, because of what he completed in his cycle of incarnations, actually broke through and became what Edgar Cayce called the master of masters.
Yeah. So that's why the ARE needs to sort of, you know, don't get sidetracked from that, what Edgar Cayce and LYNN, they were that Jesus Christ. I mean, if they try and go somewhere in a different path, then it's not gonna end well. Like it's sort of you don't want to rear off, you know, like and it's not gonna end well. So I'm hoping that I'm trying to sort of help in steering it back to the right course, like many others.
Here is the thing. These are complex concepts. Yeah. You say Jesus or you say Jesus Christ, and you immediately hit a wall of assumptions about what you mean. And to present it appropriately and in a way that's true to the readings takes careful unfolding discussion, points building one upon the other. And in this day and age of sound bites, there are few people willing to go with you down that road. They want the bullet points. They want the sound bites. They want the quickie answer. And I have yet to find a way to address these things that you're touching on right now with quickie answers.
Yeah, but the readings, it's everywhere in the readings. Like if you just go in there, it's all there. It's direct. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't beat
But it
around.
was presented in a way that was easy for mid-20th century American Christians to accept. And not so easy for 21st century diverse world populations to accept. And that's, I think, the problem.
But I see Hugh Lynn and Edgar Cayce didn't have that problem. They said it like it is, that this is it.
Right.
They didn't say, no, we're trying to please, or we're trying to,
No,
this is the
I agree.
truth. And this is it. Like, you take it or you leave it, but this is the truth. And we're not going to beat around the bush. We're not going to try and change it to make some people happy or not. This is the truth. You take it, you leave it, but it's not going to change. We're not going to change. And that's my stand as well.
Well, that's out of step with the times, and that's going to be a problem. But you see what I'm saying? That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I know.
And again, not completely without cause, because we've had too many examples in my lifetime of people presenting the so-called truth who have been disastrous cult type leaders. So a healthy, I get nervous if somebody says this is the truth, because and yet I do believe there are certain core truths that are not. Truth is not my truth or your truth, or there's my understanding of truth and your understanding of truth. But whatever it is, that truth we are wanting to get at is a given. But our human understandings of it can be so flawed and so affected by our unconscious biases.
Yeah, because sort of like what I was thinking, because you know how Edgar Cayce would go to sleep-like state, and I reckon that was his super conscious state, which is like the Christ level state, and he was trying to bring down information from that level, from the Christ level, down to physical conscious level. So then it was recorded. So unfortunately, I mean, we all have to go up to that level and then discuss from that level, which is a different level altogether. So
those can be. And so you may be helping me see why I haven't been so darned eager to write this book.
No, I understand. It's just a lot of, if I would write it, like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write this book, where would I start? Who's my, it's not, it's not so I understand your hesitation, it's not like you can't do it. It's just, what's the reason why you're doing it? Like, what's the purpose?
Right.
So it's been interesting. So hopefully I didn't take too much of your time,
No, I'm glad we had a chance to speak. It's been a lot of fun.
So you're sort of like my first special guest. Like, to me, I'm saying, oh, is she gonna talk to me like I'm like a nobody? I'm just.
Oh no. You're somebody who cares deeply about the work, and that's what it takes. I know when I first got interested in Cayce and was just on fire to be a part of this work, and again I was in high school, I wanted to arrange a talk about the work of Edgar Cayce, and there was a man who was, I had never met him. He was last I knew, we connected on Facebook just about a year ago, and he was still alive. Reverend Ralph Spears in New Jersey, a clergyman who was involved with the Search for God study group work.
Okay.
And I contacted him and asked if he could come and do a talk at my high school. And it was like Tuesday evening or something. And I set the whole thing up and he came, and we didn't get a terrific turnout. My dreams were of, crowds just coming and filling the room, but it wasn't an embarrassingly small turnout either. It was enough. But that desire, and I'm bringing that story up because I think the desire to share this work, what is a very strong thing. You find it touches you on a very deep soul level. And if I may say, my biggest beef with the way the Cayce work is looked at as a whole is that it's kind of, for a lot of people, the beginner's part. People learn about Cayce, but then when they want to go advanced, they go on to other things.
Yeah.
And nothing could be further from the truth, because as I have branched into other things, and I'm talking about reading theosophists like Steiner or Alice Bailey or Leadbeater or Annie Besant, reading modern, careful evolutionary thinkers like Ken Wilber. No matter where I go, when I find concepts that are cutting edge and deep, I can look back and see that they were hiding in plain sight in the Cayce readings all along. But because most of what's presented about the work skims along the surface, the people out there in the world at large have no idea how much depth there is in the Cayce.
Oh yeah, if you dig deep into the readings, it's all there.
Right. I am working right now, working in the sense of being serious about it, not in the sense of labor, a weekly meeting with two friends who are into the depth of the readings. And we're going over the readings that Edgar Cayce gave for Morton Blumenthal, who asked most of the deep metaphysical questions. And we're going through those readings one by one. And, our minds are blown at what we're reading there. And all of us have been involved with the work. One person has been involved in it about the same length of time I have. Another one, maybe about 10 years less. And yet, as we read these Morton Blumenthal readings, we are astounded at what's there that we haven't encountered in any publications.
Yeah, Morton Bloom, he was a deep thinker himself. He asked very deep questions, like he can, like serious. He was a spiritual person, like.
And he was only a young man in his
20s
when he was asking these questions.
Yeah. So he had a lot of knowledge. So like, where did he get all this knowledge from, like, before?
Yeah.
But so the other thing that while you were talking, I still realized, because you're part of a community, so you're active as well. Like, it's not like you're in, Edgar Cayce and you're stuck at Edgar Cayce. You're sort of active in your community, and so that keeps you busy every day. And
yeah, although I have stayed home for the last 2 years solid. Oh. I'm serious. I really have. Fortunately, I'm a homebody introvert, so I haven't minded it. So that these are all virtual connections.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, because of the COVID situation.
Yeah, as well. I'm doing all of my client work via Zoom right now. Even though I've kept my office, I don't use it right now.
Okay.
So.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad that you've taken, time off your schedule and just to meet. So I'm
happy
so
to do it.
Thankful.
Very happy to do it, and I wish you all the best in your work to get Cayce legacy out there for people to really appreciate what's there.
Well, that's my whole purpose, was just to get them interested, and then hopefully they'll just go further and just do their own research. I'm not trying to sell anything or anything. I'm just trying to, it's like a little push, or
That's great.
get the fire going, and then once they sort of, okay, I think this is something, and then they'll just carry it on further and go to, hopefully visit ARE.
Well, again, everything's available virtually these days, and that makes it really nice.
Okay, I see. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm not gonna.
My pleasure. Stay in touch.
Yeah. Okay. God bless. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.